Hello everyone. How do you know if something is right or wrong? Let's reset, let's start from scratch.
The journey we will take around this question will provide us with powerful thinking tools. Let's reframe the question to an equivalent, but simpler one. How do we know that something is what it is said to be? Let's answer a simpler and in every respect equivalent question. How do we know that this particular water sample is drinking water? We all know drinking water is water that is safe to drink. But when is a water sample safe to drink? The objective is to have water that is healthy, clean, uncontaminated, etc. Fortunately, we have a standard that tells us when water is safe to drink, and when it should not be consumed. This standard is present in all countries, and in our country it appeared in the official journal of the Federation. And this standard defines when water is drinkable. It is defined using a set of indicators such as total coliform organisms absent or not detectable, Escherichia coli absent or not detectable, turbidity 5 nephelometric turbidity units, NTU. For other substances we have the following limits, which are expressed as in milligrams per liter. Free residual chlorine 50. Total hardness, a CaCO3, 500. Phenols or phenolic compounds 0.3. And many others. From a bacteriological point of view, it must have less than 200 colonies of aerobic mesophilic bacteria per milliliter of sample, among others. All this to guarantee that it is drinkable, and it is by law. What was done? To see if the problem sample meets the standard, a checklist is checked, which contains a list of indicators such as turbidity, colony value per milliliter, fluoride and arsenic free, etc. It is easy to see that by obtaining the indicator values of a water sample, we will immediately know if the water is potable or not. What does this example teach us? That in order to know if something is what it is said to be, it is necessary to have a standard, which, in turn, is a checklist, which, in turn, is a list of the values of the indicators or properties that this something must have in order to be considered what it is, in this case potable. We are missing the most important element of the assessment, the objective of the standard. What gives it its raison d'etre? And this objective is objective. It implies maintaining the health and well-being of the human being. That is why we check whether the water is drinkable, i.e. healthy. Let's play with this concept a bit. Suppose the objective is to get sick, to live less, to be unhealthy. Then this evil objective would produce a norm, and the values of the indicators would change. The number of harmful bacteria would increase, the amount of fluoride and arsenic would increase, etc. It is clear that the parameters and the form of the standard depend on the target. Recall that the question we started with was, how do we know if something is right or wrong? It is immediately answered by the standard. Before I continue, let me give another very enlightening example on this very issue. Let us ask, how do we know whether a person is healthy or sick? The answer is simple. There is also a standard, a checklist, which is similar in all countries of the world and is called by different names. In our country we have, and this standard defines when a human being is sick, when he or she does not fall within the healthy parameters. What is health according to the World Health Organization? How does the WHO define health? Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. How is this defined? Using a standard, with certain indicators in a healthy person, such as glucose concentration. A result of 140 mg per deciliter or less is normal. Resting heart rate in adults, it ranges between 60 and 100 beats per minute. Body temperature is between 36.5 and 37 degrees Celsius. Blood potassium concentration between 3.5 and 5.0 millimoles per liter. We can measure all the parameters with a bathymeter, thermometer, etc., and consult the checklist, and thus know which values of the indicators deviate from the norm. It is easy to see that by obtaining the values of the indicators, we will immediately know whether a particular person is ill or not. This teaches us that in order to know if a person is healthy, it is necessary to review the norm, which, in turn, is a checklist, which, in turn, is a list of the values of the indicators or properties that a human being must have in order to be considered healthy. And the objective of this standard is objective, involves maintaining the health and well-being of the human being. That the human body functions within healthy parameters. Why was this particular objective chosen? Well, it seems that there is a pact among the vast majority of human beings to consider the objective of well-being and health as the main objective. It is a logical, unquestionable objective that is tacitly accepted. So, is it right to exercise, not to smoke, and not to abuse carbohydrates in order to maintain health? We answer, of course it is, in terms of achieving the goal of health and well-being. But if someone claims that their goal is to be sick, not to stay healthy, then they can say that it is right to smoke, overeat, and not exercise. So is overeating and smoking right or wrong? Well, it depends on the goal. The goal is not necessary, i.e. forced, like the law of gravity that affects everyone, even if we complain. The goal is often a choice. We are born into a society where several goals in life have already been defined. But goals are in their essence a choice. One chooses to live sick. The other chooses to live healthy. Is it right for a chair to have 3 legs? If the norm among the covenant of men says, in its normativity, that it must have 4 legs, then it is completely wrong for it to have 3 legs. Since the goal is not necessary, forced, then it is something that is chosen by taste. The right, the good are values of ethics. Let us remember that what is beautiful and what is not beautiful, what we like and what we don't like, are values of aesthetics. What is true and what is not true are values of logic. The difference between these values is that mathematical and logical truths are objective values that are valid and necessary for all living beings, no matter what world they live in. Whereas ethics and aesthetics are subjective, what looks good in France doesn't look good in China. And as many objectives are chosen by taste, without being necessary, then we can be sure that ethics is only an aesthetic. What is good and what is bad depends only on the objective of the norm, ultimately on taste. So, when we evaluate, we do so according to a standard that was generated by an objective. We evaluate whether water is drinkable, whether a person is healthy, whether it is right for a chair to have 3 legs, and, in short, what can be right, good or bad. But the standard is also an image of what it is, an image as close to reality as possible. An image of what is drinkable, what is healthy, what is right. And since it is a representation of a part of reality, then it is a model. In short, we evaluate something according to a model. The indicators and parameters depend on the objective for which the model was constructed.
The objective is necessary, and the ultimate nature of the objective is aesthetic. Thank you for your attention.